As you can see here, they use the gains from their pump and dump schemes to fund their lavish lifestyle, from private jets to fancy cars. As you can see, Zach Morris here tweeting, "Treat yourself."
How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brian Logan, and today we got to talk about the $100 million pump and dump scheme from Atlas Trading as it relates to the meme stocks you may have seen a little while ago. Remember the whole thing about GameStop and AMC to the moon, hold it forever. Well, there was a whole big fraud behind not just those, because that was kind of small. That could have been innocent. It could have been some guys on Reddit or whatever talking about, hey, I like that stock, let's buy that stock. That could have been innocent. But what happened here was much more direct, much more out in the open, and much more intentional to pump a stock price up and then sell at the height of it to make a bunch of money. Now, there's a lot I wouldn't get into. There's a lot I got to say about it personally. But before I do any of that, let's roll the clip. If you want to see this clip in full without my commentary, the link, as always, will be in the description. But let's go ahead and roll it. And before we start, shout out to Charles Payne of Fox News and Margot Rubin for this video.
Analyst Margot Rubin. Margot, you're covering this story as well as anyone out there. So what exactly is the DOJ saying went down?
Yeah, so this is really interesting because, you know, pump and dumps have been going on forever. This isn't a new form of fraud. But what's different here is social media. They were able to do this at a much bigger scale. They altogether, these 8 social media influencers, had about 1.4 million followers. That's how they were able to make $100 million in gains off these pump and dumps.
$100 million in stock gains. That's a lot of money. When you making stuff like that, you know, the big wigs say, hey, wait a minute, what are these guys doing? We could talk about hedge funds a little bit later, of course. Some of you guys are going to talk about that right away. We'll talk about that. But $100 million from normies on Twitter, that's going to be a problem.
So it's a really interesting story.
Yeah, but you wonder, how did they get those many followers in the first place? They must have done some good somewhere down the line to get that kind of trust in the first place.
Well, they were really good at kind of like selling this lifestyle. You know, you had Tommy Coops, one of the social media influencers, you know, put out these stories that, you know, he used to live in his car and he now is turning $3K into $4 million. You know, they would show these fancy cars, these fancy homes they lived in, and they would really just try and get retail to follow them through promoting this lifestyle. And one of the examples about how these pump and dumps would work is, you know, Zach Morris, who obviously is a fake name. He was using this to hide his real identity. His real name is Edward Constanescu, and he ran this trading firm or this trading Discord chat called Atlas Trading. And they would write in the Discord to their followers, you know, what their next pump was going to be. And one of them was Camber Energy. I don't know if you can put up the ticker, but it's CEI. And according to the SEC filing, they posted in their Discord about this stock more than 1,000 times in 2 months. And the stock went up from 46 cents to $4.37 in a matter of 3 months. And Zach Morris was able to make $4 million off of that. And
yeah, that's pretty big. You know, like, if you don't know yet what the pump and dump is, like I said, when you artificially raise the price of a stock and then you sell at the very height of it. That's the whole point. So the whole thing about the Discord and whatnot, it was to get everybody on board. And I guess the purpose of them being in there, the guys in the Discord being in there, was to make a bunch of money, right? To get these big gains. But what wound up happening was they were just inflating the price of the stock. So the guys that, quote unquote, Zach Morris were aligned with, and Zach Morris himself, could make a bunch of money when they sold their position on it. They say, hey, man, you put a bunch of money in it. It'll be great, make a bunch of money. But really, it's about them getting the money. That's the whole point behind this whole scam or scheme or whatever you want to call it.
All of the 8 guys together were able to make about $5 million off that trade.
Let me ask you, you know, I posted the news when it broke. In fact, Zach Morris hit me up and said the movie's going to be sweet. A lot of folks, though, on social media, not impressed with any of this and saying that, you know, listen, Wall Street pump and dumps. To your earlier point of going.
These guys, I mean, they're not really when you got this kind of attention on you, you might go to the penitentiary. Doing stuff like this is not very smart. This is like the whole thing with Sam Bankman-Fried going on TV, going on New York Times, doing interviews. It's not very smart. The lawyer would tell you to not say a word.
Going on forever. And they also say, you know, what is the difference when someone comes on TV, they tout a stock that goes down, or, you know, or these firms or these big hedge funds or whatever it is. You're out there, you know, you're listening to the ground. What do you think about this notion that, yeah, it's you know, this is interesting timing when the regulators were looking really awful in the light of FTX to sort of cast aside their faults, but never the bigger fish getting snared. I mean, what do you think when you hear that?
No, that's a really good point that you make. And clearly what happened here is only a fraction of what's been happening in the crypto space. But when you focus on hedge funds, like, for example, hedge funds are basically playing by the same game, except instead of writing in these Discord chats, you know, they'll release a salacious short report. Well, they'll create FUD, trigger panic selling among retail, and then immediately cover their short. So that's really not any different than what Zach was doing, except he's being indicted for this huge pump and dump, whereas, you know, hedge funds merely just get a slap on the wrist.
Yeah. Margot, great work. Hope we'll talk again real soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Charles.
So there we have it. That is the whole thing with Atlas Trading and the whole pump and dump scheme. These guys are facing big time in the penitentiary. You stealing, basically they're being accused of stealing or embezzling or whatever they want to say. The pump and dump scheme. What they said right there at the end about the hedge funds is right. Because what they'll do is they'll do it in a more, I guess you would say, covert way. The Atlas Trading guys are on Instagram, what they call it, flossing, as the cool kids say, showing off the fruits of their illegitimate, ill-gotten gains. All right, they got models halfway clothed, half naked. You got cars, you got houses, you got all kind of stuff. They're showing it off. They're flaunting. They even were talking about the SEC being a bunch of idiots and morons and just stuff like that. Well, a hedge fund, what they'll do, they'll send some suit and tie guy onto CNBC or somewhere like that, and they'll talk about how bad the stock is, and they're not doing very well, and then they'll go about it that way. They'll kind of do it in a more covert way, not so much out in the open. It's weird. The whole finance space, if you ask me, a lot of the finance stuff is scammy anyway. It's just scammy. Almost inherently, really, quite frankly. And there was another story. I thought I had it over here, but I don't have it right in front of me. But remember that story about the guy that jumped to his death from the Jenga building in New York City? Gustavo Arnaud, the former CFO, I think, of Bed Bath & Beyond. Well, he did something similar to what happened here, kind of a pump and dump. So Bed Bath & Beyond is a struggling company, has been for a long time. And what he was accused of doing was defrauding investors, telling them, hey, this would be a good investment. You should put your money here. Meanwhile, it wasn't what he was saying. So as he's saying this, the price of the stock keeps going up and up and up. And a big part of his salary was based in stock. So when the stock price kept going up and up and up, he sold like right at the peak of it. Now, his whole thing was, well, I only sold like 1.4 million. I still had 5 million in stock in the company. I didn't just sell all my stock, but it was just too much going on because I think his business partners sold like right at the same time, made a bunch of money, more than Gustavo Arnaud. So with all that on his back, he's from Venezuela. He has a lot of things swirling in his mind. Will he get deported? Will he get sent to the penitentiary? Will he lose all his money? So as a result of all that, he went ahead and just committed suicide right there in New York City, jumped from the Jenga tower right in front of his wife, broad daylight. So, I mean, that happened, and he might have gone to jail for that or might have had a fine. But I think it's just all about how you do certain things. You can engage in a pump and dump, maybe even a little bit of fraud, depending upon who you are, who you know, how you go about it. These guys in Atlas Trading obviously didn't do it the right way. And you know what I think as I close? I think this might be a message to some of these guys out here that were engaged in the meme stocks. It's like, look, you want to blatantly talk about pumping and dumping in the Discord. Like you pick a stock and say, hey, let's pump that stock up. And then you sell. Like that's an obvious violation. You're being way too flagrant with it. If you do that, you're going to go to the penitentiary. That might be the message here. I'm not sure that the practice itself is illegal because, again, they're talking about the hedge funds. They do it. Guys are going CNBC talking about a stock in a negative way all the time. They do it. Maybe even the Jim Cramer or somebody like that could be accused of manipulating stocks, because if you're watching CNBC and that's your source of stock news and you seeing Jim Cramer, Susie Orman, or whoever it is talk badly about a thing, Peter Schiff talk badly about a thing, are you going to buy it if you trust them? It's kind of a weird game, but the ultimate message here is don't be too flashy. Don't flaunt your ill-begotten gains, because you can get sent to the penitentiary making big rocks into little rocks. But I think I'll leave that right there for now. And what say you? How do you feel about what's going on here? Do you think it's right for the federales to charge, quote unquote, Zach Morris and his friends and this whole pump and dump stock scheme? Whatever your thoughts are, let me know in the comments below. How do you feel about hedge funds that do it, or guys that have TV shows, or Jim Cramer, or a guy like that that does a similar thing but has no problems? Whatever your thoughts are on that, let me know in the comments below. You guys pretty much know where I'm at. A lot of financial advice you see on the internet is not really real, especially when they're like Instagram influencers and they show you a bunch of cars and houses. Hey, you can be just like me. Invest into 1, 2, 3 ABC. No. It's not quite that simple. It ain't no get rich quick, no magic pill you could take and become a millionaire overnight. It's going to take hard work, dedication, sacrifice. Now, can you strike the lottery or strike gold or oil in your backyard? Sure. But you might as well try to become a professional basketball player or try to fly to the moon, because you have better chances of making that happen than doing what I mentioned prior to that. But whatever your thoughts are, please let me know in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.